I'm taking the team total. I'm taking first quarter, first half, full game, taking it all. OU all the way. I lost so much money on OU.
Our rat's ass about Twitter.
Oh, he has trouble with the spin, and the ball is free.
Can't start to all crazy. And they run through our ass like shit through a tin horn, man.
That is a disgusting act by Randy Moss.
What is up, and welcome to Not Another CFB Pod. We are previewing your Week 3 college football, your Week 2 NFL football. Potato Gobbler here with my guy Beast Picks. How we feeling, Beast?
Feeling great. Excited to get the show going. We got a lot of good games this week, so let's get it going, baby.
As always, we're brought to you by Coda Sports Gambling Network. Proud to be so. We're excited to just keep going, man. This is, I think, the week that I put in the most work as far as on the board. I feel like we've got so many more data points now. We've got 2 games in of college football. We're a week into NFL football. There's a little more to draw from. I have a feeling we're going to get hot this week.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think we're just going to continue what we've already been kind of doing, which is kind of getting a read of these teams, and we're going to get going, guys. Just stay with us.
Well, it should be said that Beast actually did very well this weekend. I wasn't great, so I think he's kind of covering for me a little bit. I wasn't like Big Cat was this weekend, but I was still not great. But our guy Beast had a pretty good week.
Yeah, it was a good weekend. I feel like I don't want to, speak too much because you don't want to yourself, but no, PG is going to get hot here. I think everybody remembers last year when PG gets hot, he goes flaming hot. So it's going to get going here.
It's all about picking up those data points. And with that said, let's go to the football that we have the most data points for. It's college football. Obviously we had week 0. Not everybody played, but some teams did. Week 1 and week 2 in the books. A lot of fun. I'm going to be honest though, Beast, this week's slate, not too crazy. I'm obviously going to be at the OU Nebraska game, which is one of these games. I think there's only one ranked game, which is, let me scroll down to it.
Maybe Oregon and BYU.
Oregon, BYU.
Yeah.
You're right. But I think there's lots of interesting matchups like this OU Nebraska. What's Nebraska going to look like this week? What's Texas going to look like a week after taking Bama to the brink? What's Bama going to look like this week? A lot of them have cupcakes. I mean, that is the reality of it. But there's money to be made. And so, yeah, I'm still excited about this slate.
Yeah, there's some underrated games on the slate. And I said the same thing last week where the games that I wasn't necessarily, dialing in as like, this is a top 3 matchup of the weekend, ended up being some pretty good games. So I'm still excited. Anytime we're going to get a full weekend of football, I'm pumped up. So we got NFL, we got, NCAA. So a lot of good things happen.
Yeah, lots going on. We've got our first Thursday night matchup, which means college football once again moving to Friday night, and we've only got 2 games, but I think they're both interesting. Florida State at Louisville. That's the ACC opener for Florida State after looking good against LSU, getting a big win in Baton Rouge. No, that was New Orleans, but it still looked good. And then Air Force and Wyoming. Air Force has been a monster so far this year.
Yeah, Air Force is looking real good. At first, when I looked at that line, that was one of those ones where I was like, Wyoming's tough to play at, but that might not matter. I just feel like Air Force is rolling teams right now. And that offense always fun to watch, but they look good.
Yeah, they look good so far. And I've got a play on that, just a little teaser. We won't talk too much. We won't go into it too much. But as I said, some of the big name teams taking on a little bit easier matchups, but some intriguing ones. Like one I think is really interesting is Georgia at South Carolina. Now, this is an 11 a.m. game. It's be 12 p.m. over there, noon. So I usually have this theory, Beast, and you can agree or disagree with this, but I think during the day, especially in that earlier first window, even if you have a big home crowd, it just doesn't hit the same as it does under the lights. So I don't think, like, if you were doing it from a points betting perspective, like, I don't think it's worth quite as many points as a night game might be worth.
No, I think I would agree with that. The night games are always kind of a little trickier, and you're going to have way more advantage. The fans seem to, maybe it's just that they've been drinking all day.
That's what I said on the CFB show last
I remember going to night games when I was at Michigan State, and it was a big difference in, where I was walking in at the game. So they're going to be loud, so it's going to be a tough matchup for Georgia. We'll see. I mean, I say that, but they might blow the doors off.
Right. It could go either way, but I just think it's interesting because South Carolina, I think, has a pulse this year. I think they're going to surprise some people. So, like this minute, we got to talk about Michigan, UConn. Can we talk about Michigan's non-conference, please? They've played Colorado State. Hawaii, and UConn. That's their 3 out of conference games this year. And I get it. Like they're in that side of the Big Ten that's really tough with Michigan State, Ohio State, themselves obviously are a big power in that side of the conference. But gosh, this is a bad non-conference for them.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of people in the Big Ten, fans, I'm not just saying Michigan fans, but Michigan fans are guilty of it too, would complain about Alabama scheduling cupcakes, and they'd say, oh, Alabama just sets themselves up. It's like, well, now your point kind of is, moot, so anybody that's a Big Ten fan can't really, defend a team that's supposed to be, top 5. A lot of people are still talking about them. They have a good chance at the CFP if they can beat Ohio State. Well, they're kind of not even challenging themselves until they get to, Michigan State or Ohio State at this point.
Yeah, it's just a waiting game with them. But I think they did find their quarterback at least, so that does help. OU taking on Nebraska this week. Obviously, I've announced already, but I'm going to be at that game. Very excited for this one going down at 11. It's going to be fun with a lot of friends, but the game I did want to kind of talk about just because I know I don't have a pick on this game. Do you have a pick on this game? Yeah, so
I don't.
We got to get something in here. I think this line, first of all, is crazy. It's been anywhere from like Nebraska +9 all the way to Nebraska like +17. And now it's back around 10.5. By the time people are listening to this, who knows? I think if this goes under 10, I might take OU here. I think OU's defensive line is going to have a big day. OU is a defensive team, I think. I think a lot of people are still thinking about the old OU, where they just basically ran air raid and then the defense was gassed and gave up a bunch of points. I think OU's a little different now, but Nebraska's a more physical team. They're going to be up for this game. One thing we discussed in the CFB show taping, shout out our guy, Kyle. We talked about Nebraska being up for this. This is a raw spot. If there ever was one for Nebraska that you just fired your head coach, you're 1-2. OU might overlook them. I don't think they do with Brent Venables at the helm. I just think they've got a chance to impose their will. They're a big physical team still. And OU is bigger than they were last year, but they're still not like what you'd expect out of a Big Ten West team or whatever, So I still think this game's going to be really fun, and I can't wait for it.
Yeah, I didn't have a play on that game just because you said that spread's been just all over the place.
Jumping. I kind of like the under because of the reasons I said. I think both defenses will dig in a little bit, but I couldn't come up with anything.
From a handicapping perspective, I feel like it's got to be one of the toughest ones of the weekend because on paper, it feels like OU should blow them out. But You're right. This is a rivalry. Anybody that can, vouch for me on this, that it's going to be very tough to go to Lincoln and play. It's just the fans always show up, even when the team's bad.
It's going to be packed. Yeah.
So I feel like that's one of those environments that no matter what, they're going to get up for it. So,
right. It's those confusing data points, Beast, because we just saw Nebraska lose to Georgia Southern and give up a bunch of points. So you naturally want to take the over because like, OU, they always score a lot of points. That defense is way better this year. Nebraska's got some holes. Like it's difficult to like, you really got to know and have a finger on both these teams because I don't know what the play is. We haven't figured it out, but that's why I'm excited to go because I feel like this game could go so many different ways. Our Kentucky Wildcats taking on Youngstown State, not really a big game.
Yeah.
As I said, a lot of these games are just kind of throwaway games, but it's interesting to see where some of these teams are as far as like, can you take care of business? When you're Baylor, you just lost to BYU in overtime, you should blow this Texas State team out of the water, but it's that in-state rival thing. You never know. So there's lots of interesting points, but I think the game we got to hit on, this is a 2:30 p.m. Central, 3:30 East Coast. BYU at Oregon. I've got a pick on this one, so I don't want to go in too deep. But
yeah, I do as well.
Yeah, I think we even through the action app, I think we may even be on the same side of this. I just think it's gonna be a fun matchup in Autzen Stadium there in Eugene, Oregon. BYU, man, they're a big physical team, and we already saw Oregon lose to a physical team, so I'm interested to see that one.
Yeah, I'm curious to see if this one goes the same way that, the Georgia one went.
Right.
But I don't, at the same time, BYU's not Georgia. At least I don't think so.
Say but, that. We got to get that disclaimer in.
But at the same time, this is one of those games that, BYU should take care of business, but it's not easy going to Eugene. So we got some good looks on this game. I think we actually have different plays, but
well, that could be a good thing. You never know.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Okay, good. Let's see. I'm just looking at Penn State and Auburn. I think you have a play on this, if I'm not mistaken. So I don't want to go in deep. But This is another one of those games that kind of flies under your radar. This is a great game for you to switch back and forth between when you're on BYU, Oregon. This will be a good one to switch back to. Penn State and Auburn playing at home. So last year it was at Penn State and it was a whiteout, I think. Yep. Absolute scenes. I remember watching that one early last year. Like I said, Beast has a play on that. So we'll talk about that one more.
Yep.
But yeah, Alabama taking on UL Monroe. I mean, that should be nothing. But again, they didn't look great last week. So what are we going to get? Texas Tech at NC State is one that I think is interesting. And I don't know if either one of us have a play on that. You want to talk about that game a little?
Yeah, no, I don't have any play on it. I was really looking at NC State a lot. Just
Me too.
It feels like
that's the side I was
it's only 10 points. And I'm like, you know what? NC State, I don't think they've really shown us everything they got. I think that defense is going to be really solid this year. I mean, I was talking about them as, they might be like a CFP under, dog kind of thing, maybe win the ACC. But I think that this may be a game where they open it up. Just 10 points, something about that line. Maybe if it was 9.5, I would have jumped on it, but I just held off. There's other plays I liked more this week, but I think NC State might be the look if I had to lean.
We're both leaning that way. So if that means anything to the listeners out there, one game we got to definitely get in, Beast, is Michigan State going to Seattle, playing Washington Huskies. I keep wanting to say Washington Cougars. I don't know what the deal is with that. Washington Huskies. Very interesting, man. Husky Stadium. It's going to be a fun one. It's going to be weird though, because we were discussing this one, and it's not technically like it's a 6:30 Central. So that's 4:30 on the West Coast. So even by the fourth quarter, it's probably only going to be kind of dark. Like they'll definitely have the lights on, but it's not quite Pac-12 after dark. But I'm pumped to be with the dudes and just crack a beer for this one because I think it's going to be a good game.
I think it will too. I think that there's something to be said about this spread. Okay. I was very nervous, but I do have a play on this game.
Yeah, I saw you have a play come through, and I'm very excited about that. I love that. And our guy Peyton Thorne going in there. We'll just see. And I want to wait for your for what your pick is before we talk about it anymore. But that's going to be a fun one, I think. You've got some games like Clemson, Louisiana Tech coming into Clemson. We talked about Louisiana Tech a little bit earlier this year, just because they have a new offense, new coach, and Clemson hasn't looked amazing yet. So that could be a weird spot. UTSA coming to Texas under the lights. UTSA, a pretty good program. Does Texas have any kind of hangover from that Bama game? Oh, man, we totally whiffed on this game. There is another ranked matchup this week. Yeah. Miami at Texas A&M, and I actually have a play on this game. I just completely blanked on it. Late night game, Miami on the road. Texas A&M obviously just got upset. Man, that one should be good too.
Yeah, it's going to be great. I don't want to tease it too much because you have the play on it, but
yeah,
I think this could be maybe our best game of the weekend.
It definitely could be.
Going into last week, I thought A&M was a sure thing. I mean, I even had a discussion with my brother earlier this year that I said I wouldn't be shocked if they ran the table and actually found their way just on defense alone to find their way into that discussion at the end of the year for the SEC, like maybe even find their way into the CFP. But then last week happened.
Yep.
And that can't happen. So suddenly, some people say, well, their season's over. I don't know. I think Jimbo wants to prove himself, and season's not over. They got to win this one.
They're at a crossroads right now. Yeah. If they drop this one too, I promise you, if they lose this one, they were going to lose the locker room. I already feel like they kind of did last week. I don't know if you saw, they had a corner. I think we actually discussed this part of this story in our last show, but they had a corner this week, Texas A&M, who was on Instagram Live, just drifting through a full parking garage, just going like 70 miles an hour. It gives you so much anxiety if you watch the video. And then that same kid liked a tweet. It was the thing we talked about with Jimbo, where the guy had the tweet about Jimbo's offense expiring in 2014. He liked that tweet about his own coach. And this is a freshman, I'm pretty sure, talking about how his head coach's offense isn't any good anymore. So it could already be a mess. But again, I have a play on that. So we won't talk about the game anymore. Fresno at USC, 9:30 p.m., dude. Are you kidding me? Pac-12 after dark. Shout out Manny, my guy. Are you kidding me? That's going to be a fun game. Jake Hayner's our boy. So Man, that's going to be another one of those really good ones just to be with your boys, drinking a cold one. That's going to be a good one.
Yeah. That's one of the, I think, like, we haven't really gotten like a great Pac-12 after dark yet. I mean, there's been some good ones. Obviously, like, last week we saw a couple games went real late. That BYU and Baylor game was late. I know that's not Pac-12, but anyways, so we haven't necessarily had a game that I've been like this anticipating because, like you said, we love Fresno State. So I think this is going to be a fun one against USC.
I just came up with something. That's why if you're watching on YouTube, I've been like smiling this whole time. I wrote it down. We've got a new segment. It's not even a segment, but it's a pick of the week, right? This is the Certified Cold One Classic. Usually these are the late games on a Saturday night. You've had a couple cold ones. It's a great one just to sit back, watch some explosion. I think the over-under on that's like 74. So that's going to be really fun between Fresno State and USC. The Certified Cold One Classic of the week. You heard it here first. On another CFB.
It's got to be. Hayner's going to be so fun. I said Jalen Cropper was one of my favorite receivers in the whole NCAA this year. So
you've obviously got Caleb Williams and Mario Williams and this whole USC attack that's looked amazing so far this year. So that I like that Certified Cold One Classic. But that kind of wraps up our CFB preview. We need to talk about the NFL a little bit here. There we go. The NFL this week, we obviously had a Thursday night game, so we missed that one, but we've got that doubleheader Monday night football. I'm excited about that. Tennessee at Buffalo, Minnesota, Philadelphia. That's going to be an all-time classic Monday night.
Yeah, that Philly and Minnesota game suddenly
Sneaky
Minnesota.
Good one.
We were
two of
talking
the top
about
NFC prospects right now, but we do just have one data point on each for the disclaimer. But so far, man, those look like some good NFC teams.
Right. We were saying Minnesota looked so good last week, so I'm curious to see what they'll do. They got to travel to Philly. Yep. Mm-hmm. Philly's getting that home opener on Monday Night Football. It's going to be tough.
Yeah, as far as Sunday goes, we got some interesting ones. Detroit at home against Washington, Beast Lions. I think they're actually favored in that one, and I like their chances. That's another good over game, I feel like, with Washington's defense being a little banged up. But I'm excited for Tampa Bay, New Orleans. New Orleans is a team that came back, had a huge comeback last week. We didn't expect it, but they found a way to win when it's all said and done. Jameis Winston in that second half looked a lot better. I'm excited. This is a heated rivalry in that NFC South.
Yeah, that's the game that I need big for my Saints, to win that
your
division.
Win total.
Yeah, I got them to win the NFC South.
Yes,
so
I forgot about that.
That's the one that's going to matter because if you drop that game, suddenly things kind of become a little shaky.
Now you're 1.5. You're 1.5 behind them immediately.
Right. So you got to pick up that win. Any divisional game is going to be fun,
especially at home.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always fun, these divisional games, but I think the Saints actually have a really good squad. They gotta get this one.
I've got to play on this, so we'll get into that game, and I'm excited about it. Some of the other good ones, I think Miami at Baltimore. It's also a noon game, 1 p.m. if you're on the East Coast. That's a good one, man. All of a sudden, I was kind of hard on the Dolphins a little bit. I felt like I just wanted to see it, but dude, they manhandled the Patriots. I felt like they made better decisions when it was time to do it. And for a divisional game, they look like they took care of business. But Baltimore, obviously, they may be having a good year as well. They've got some banged up running backs. I don't know who all they get this week, but Lamar Jackson was throwing bombs down the field last week. So,
yeah, Lamar's playing for that contract right now. He's trying to get paid out. I don't blame the man, but that's going to be a fun matchup. Probably one of the better ones of the weekend just because, like you said, Miami's going to bring it on offense, and we know that the Ravens took care of business. Out of all those teams that I think we were like high on going into last week, a lot of teams dropped games. Like Indianapolis dropped their game, the Bengals lost a game, but the Ravens took care of business. So they're going to be solid this year. I think they don't mess around.
Yeah, I think so too. Then we got a pretty good one as far as the West Coast goes at 3:25. What's that? 4:25 slot for you over there on the East Coast. Arizona at Las Vegas. I'm interested to see because both these teams are 0-1 coming into this one, but I have a feeling both teams are looking at this as an opportunity to get a dub, get that first win. I'm sure that Arizona's going to come out firing. This could be a good over game. I love overs in Allegiant Stadium. I don't have a pick on it this week, but shout out to our guy B-Russ. I'm wearing my Raiders shirt right now. So
there we go.
I just had to get that one in.
Yeah. No, I don't have a play on that game, but I'm excited for it. I think you're right. I think it's going to be a lot of points, a lot of electric offenses. The Raiders didn't really show us everything they had last week, so
Right.
this is their week. I think they do that. So
Big Sunday night matchup. The 1-0 Chicago Bears going to the 0-1 Green Bay Packers. This is a game. Aaron Rodgers has owned the Bears, as we know. Sorry to all Bears fans out there, but he unfortunately has just been kicking their butt. But at the same time, Chicago Bears were underdogs last week and came up with a win. I don't know what they do here on Sunday night. I don't have a play on this game, but am excited to sit down and watch it. I'm sure by Sunday night I'll have something. Stay tuned to the Twitter as always for that. But yeah, I think it's gonna be a decent Sunday night game, at least a rivalry, if nothing else.
yeah, with how that Bears defense played last week, I know that was like a monsoon, and people keep saying that, but like that defense still had to play pretty
around.
good. So I want to say they were like a top 5, in all the rankings and DVOA and stuff last week. So we'll see. If you could put some pressure on Aaron Rodgers, suddenly Aaron Rodgers becomes a lot less, successful. So we'll see.
Well, unless you have any more games, Beast, we'll wrap up the week 2 NFL kind of preview or there. But before we move on to our picks, I want to get a word in from our sponsor. The BetCoda Sportsbook is a South Dakota owned and operated sportsbook located in the Midnight Star Casino in Deadwood, South Dakota, serving customers in the state. As you enter the Midnight Star, you are swept into the past with a grand staircase, stunning woodwork, and the elegance of the chandelier. They offer the best lines in Deadwood, so stop by and mention the Coda Sports Gambling Network to receive a free BetCoda t-shirt. Play responsibly, must be 21 years or older to wager. Gambling problems or concerns? Call 1-800-522-4700. Shout out to BetCoda Sportsbook. Let's get into the picks. We want to get into In the Weeds. For those folks that are listening for the first time, In the Weeds is just a play. You got to kind of really study the book, study the board, find, a lot of times it's team totals or it's like a first half under. These are plays that not everybody's looking at. They're a little less bet, but we've so far been really sharp in this segment. So I can't wait. I'm going to let Beast lead this one off.
Yeah, this In the Weeds play is going to be very similar to kind of how my La Tech play was a couple weeks back. And that's, I'm taking a team with a ton of points, and that's USF plus 24.5. On the road against Florida. This just has to do with, I think this is way too much points. I respect Florida. I think they're good. It's hard to not like Anthony Richardson. But Jerry Bohannon's looking great for USF. Came over from Baylor. I think he's actually a pretty solid quarterback. He should be able to put up points. Yes, Florida's going to be, putting up plenty of points themselves with Richardson. And I don't want to sound like this is a Richardson hate podcast because I went against him last week with Kentucky and I'm going against him again this week. But I just think this is a perfect spot for one of those gross backdoor covers. When you're at 24.5, that's like that football number of it could be a 31-point game. We get a 7-point, swing at the end of the game. Suddenly we cover. 24 points is a very, very, doable number to keep it within. And they're going to want to prove themselves. Me and PG were talking before this. We said team like USF, these in-state, schools, a lot of these players probably didn't get recruited by the University of Florida or Florida State. So they want to prove themselves. I think they're going to try to get up. Yes, USF lost by 29 to BYU, but BYU is better than Florida in my opinion. So just keep it within 24. That's a ton of points. Give me that gross, nasty backdoor cover. We're going in the weeds. Get that backdoor.
That's what it's all about, man. We're just trying to come up with these plays, and I've got one that I absolutely love myself. We're going to be back in the troops once again, but it's a different group of troops. This is the Air Force Falcons. Team total over 30.5. They just need to score 31 points for us at Wyoming Cowboys, who me and Beast have detailed, not our favorite teams so far this year, but I love Air Force. Air Force has a bunch of veterans. They run that triple option offense, but they pass a little bit better than your normal Service Academy team would. This is a team that returned 8 starters on offense, and that's a huge deal for these triple option offense. Beast has been on both sides of Wyoming so far this year, but as he's detailed, it's a weird team. It's not quite that good yet. They've played Air Force well in the past. Obviously, this is a Mountain West matchup for them, but I think Air Force this year is special. They return a lot of starters, and that's exactly what I want out of my triple option teams. I think they're going to do a great job of not turning the ball over, which is a huge deal for this offense. And with that, I think we hit this cover. I want to look real quick at Wyoming's the points they've given up, because I'm pretty sure they've given up over 31 in both their games. I'm sorry, that's not right at all, but they did give up 37 to a pretty bad Tulsa offense. So there you go. I think we hit this number, and it is very in the weeds because it's a Friday night game. You might not even know it's on. I think it's on, CBS Sports Network. So that's a channel that not even everybody gets, but loving the Air Force Falcons this week.
Oh yeah, a little Mountain West action. So that's always in the weeds when we're going to the Mountain West,
Exactly.
For sure. Well,
okay.
if we're going to Moneyline Dogs, I can start us off, man.
Yeah, I was going to have you lead us off. We're going to go to Moneyline Dogs now. For those out there, it's obviously just we're picking an underdog on the money line to win straight up. I've got a good one. This is my only NFL play of the weekend. I'm going to let Beast lead us off, though, because I know he's got a good one. I saw it come across the app, so I'm excited.
Okay. Well, it made me nervous at first, but the deeper I looked into it, it just doesn't make sense to me why Michigan State is an underdog this week traveling to Washington. We're getting Michigan State money line plus 145. Yes, this game's going to be on the road, and yes, it's going to be a very tough environment. But as PG mentioned, this isn't necessarily a night game. Like, this is a 4:30 game for Washington and that West Coast time. Michigan State's good, and I know that we want to believe that maybe Peyton Thorne hasn't really been the same, but I don't really care because this rushing offense is number 17 in the country, so they bring it both on rushing and passing. The rushing defense, on the other hand, number 21 in the country. The defense pitched a shutout last week against Akron. I think the defense is actually not getting enough credit for what Michigan State has done the last 2 weeks. It wasn't a perfect game against Western, but last week, big, step up in pitching that shutout. Mm-hmm. We talked about Jacoby Windman, leading the league in the nation in sacks right now, had 3 forced fumbles last week. So they're putting the ball on the ground, and anytime a defense is, making turnovers, I'm excited about it. I think Michigan State is not getting necessarily enough credit. Yes. Did I go to Michigan State and I have a little bit of bias? Sure, I do. But at the same time, for what they've done so far, I don't think the results have been probably as bad as Vegas is making this number. I could be the fool, but I think the only way I would play this game is if I was taking, the money line at plus 145, because that 3.5 point spread, just whatever, you're not going to get much value off of it. So
yeah, this is one where you probably play both, right? You probably do half and half or something on your unit, just to cover whatever, because it is more than a field goal. But still, this is one beast that when we talked about this on the CFB show, again, shout out our guy Kyle, but we talked a lot about this is Big Ten versus Pac-12. And so far, man, the Pac-12 looks really weak. I know the Big Ten hasn't had their most insane year ever, but it's just tough to trust some of these Pac-12 teams with the recruiting and the way things have gone. Washington's looked pretty good through 2 weeks, but you know what? Michigan State has taken care of business so far through 2 weeks as well. So I like their odds here, and I'm glad that you had a definitive answer, because all of us were wishy-washy on this game, because you look at the spread and you think, oh, well, Washington State must be the better team. But I think in all our guts, we know Michigan State's the better team. So it's just about, can Mel get these guys going on the road? And I think the answer should be yes. So I'll tell you on that. As I said, my only NFL pick is right here in Moneyline Dogs. I like the New Orleans Saints to win at home against the division rival Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think it's plus 130 right now, so it's not insane, but that's still pretty darn good. I think a couple things. Number one, sure, on Sunday Night Football, Tampa came out, did their thing, but it was an ugly game. I think the Cowboys looked terrible. I think that Tampa's a good team, but I think it's going to take them some time to really get gelled, especially when they got in the red zone against this Cowboys defense. It didn't look like they knew exactly what they wanted to do. New Orleans is a team that they got shell-shocked in that first half against Atlanta. All of a sudden they looked up, and at halftime they're down 16-7, but they find a way. Michael Thomas is back, by the way. I think a lot of people are forgetting how good this dude is. He had 2 touchdowns in that fourth quarter. Was a big-time player for them all game. Jameis Winston found some confidence there late. That was a big-time win for them. I think they continue that momentum. And New Orleans home openers, man, I've been in that stadium for a New Orleans game. It's a lot of fun. They're going to have that place going. So I love that spot, a home dog in the NFL, plus 130. Bam, there we go.
I like that a lot. I think, like I said, I love this Saints team. I think this is a great spot to get them at home.
Right. So now I guess we'll transition into our best bets. So I've got quite a few of these, so I may not go as in depth. How many? I have 6. How many did you have, Beast?
I think I'm in that range. It's like 6 or
Okay.
7. I might
All
have
right.
one more than you, but it's
Well, then
close.
I'll lead. No, you should lead off then. You should lead off.
Okay. We'll go another money line play. This time we're taking, a slight favorite, and that's going to be Syracuse money line minus 115, home versus Purdue. I talked a lot about how much I liked Purdue entering the year, and it's not to say that I don't like them. Maybe I'm overreacting, but Garrett Schrader looks awesome for Syracuse right now. Yep. This Syracuse defense quietly has held 2 teams to under 14 or less, I should say, through 2 weeks. So the defense has actually been impressive, and that's not something I'm necessarily used to out of Syracuse. Yes, Aiden O'Connell's probably going to play pretty hard, and this may be a tight game, but this is at Syracuse, so they're going to have that home advantage. The Purdue defense didn't necessarily look super sharp against Penn State, in that week 0 matchup. I like Syracuse here at minus 115. It feels like they got the edge at home. I'm high on Garrett Schrader right now, man.
Yeah, me too. In this rushing attack, you got Tucker at running back for Syracuse, the guy we all love. He's the guy that always has the tweets after the game. We played a great game. Today we defeated the Purdue Boilermakers 31-30. I had this many yards rushing. It was fun. Like, he's the best. Yeah. This is a fun team right now. They're 2-0. As we've talked about before, they've looked really good so far this year. And yeah, like I said earlier, it hasn't been the strongest year for the Big Ten right out the gates. Syracuse is a weird place to play as well. I feel like teams just don't play well in there. They typically play down to whatever Syracuse is doing. So they got a little hype behind them. I like the Syracuse team too. I'm going to go to a play though. I'm taking a favorite as well. This is a Friday night game. I'm taking the Florida State Seminoles minus 2.5 over the Louisville Cardinal. Now, this is at Louisville. I think Louisville stinks. I know they went ahead and beat UCF last week. That was a little tough because I was on the UCF side, but I didn't see anything too impressive. I felt like UCF just kind of puked down their legs, especially in that second half. Love what I saw out of Florida State. They've had a week off. They got to just watch film. And it's not like Louisville was able to hide anything. They've played some tough games. They lost. They got smoked by Syracuse, and then they barely beat UCF. But it was still a good win on the road. And now they turn around and they have to play on another Friday night. Florida State's off of a long rest. Love Florida State in the spot. They've got a much better roster. Jordan Travis is fully healthy. And when he's fully healthy, this offense is pretty decent for Jay Norvell over there. I'll take the Florida State Seminoles minus 2.5.
Yeah, I'm excited. I think Travis, like you said, when he's healthy, he can cook, man.
He's pretty good.
Kind of underrated. He's fast.
He's probably only a college football quarterback. Let's be honest, a little undersized, and his best attribute is he can move the pocket a little bit, kind of get up and run around a little bit even at times. But he's probably not an NFL guy, but for college, he's one of those guys you want to put some money on. I think he's gotten a lot smarter. I think he's a junior now. So he's been in the program for a little bit, had some time to watch film and get better and better. And I think this Louisville team is just not that good. I do expect them to have a decent crowd, but I think a lot of Florida State fans will make that trip. There's a lot of optimism in this program right now. So I'll take Florida State. Ready for it. You take off with the next one.
Yeah, so I'm going to go to a play that I looked in the Action app and I saw that you're on it as well, which made me even more excited. Might have to double down, and that's going to be Western Kentucky plus 6.5 at Indiana. So I won't go too in depth. I'll hit a couple points and I'll let you kind of finish it out here. Man, you got to like what you're seeing out of Austin Reed right now, man. He is slinging the ball around for Western Kentucky, and I just haven't seen much out of Indiana. Like, what have they done to be 6.5-point favorites? Yes, the game's at Indiana, but 3 separate players on Western Kentucky last week had over 40 yards rushing, including Austin Reed. So a little dual threat action out of the kid. I'm excited about Western Kentucky. Dude, giving me 6.5 points with a team that's actually been playing pretty good ball, I'm going to take it. But I'll let you kind of hit on some points here too, man.
Well, yeah, I'll kind of hit on the other side of that, which is I just don't think Indiana's that good. They trailed in the first half against a bad Idaho team. That's a FCS team. And they're FCS, by the way, because they were so bad in FBS that they were just like, we got to do something different because they literally didn't win a game for 2 or 3 seasons, I think. Anyway, they really struggled, Indiana did, against that Idaho team. And if you did that, this Western Kentucky offense is going to come in and surprise you. And all we have to do is keep it within 6.5. It's not like we have to win this game straight up. I love this spot. I'm not too concerned with playing in Indiana. I don't think that crowd really cares too much about this team. Not only that, but this is an 11 a.m. game, so it's only going to probably be half full anyway. We'll take the Hilltoppers here. I like it, and we'll let you roll with the next pick.
Yeah, I mean, like 35 against Idaho means nothing. You know what I mean? So,
well, and they only had like 7 at the half, or like it was something
right.
ridiculous. I don't have the box score in front of me, but
yeah. So I'm gonna head into that, that 2:30 Central Time, 3:30, Eastern slate. Yep. We're gonna go to BYU Oregon, and I'm gonna take over 57.5 in this game. So I know you have a different play on this game, but I'll lay out. I think this game's going to be very high scoring. It just, when you look at it on paper, to me, it just sticks out as far as I feel like the only way this game is going to be, Oregon can keep up is if they get into a shootout. Jaron Hall's bringing a lot for BYU. Oregon's defense got smoked by Georgia, who had a good offensive line. What does BYU have? A pretty solid offensive line. So I think BYU is going to have no issues against this Oregon defense that I think I talked up a lot with Noah Sewell and a couple other, all Pac-12 guys from last year. But I'm not so sure that, against the team like BYU who brings a solid offense, they're going to be able to hold them down. This feels like, if I had to predict it, it would be like a 38, 31 type game, something like that, where BYU just, takes it and it gets way up there in scoring. But Oregon was pretty good on offense last week. I know they didn't look great against Georgia, but Georgia's got a great defense.
They're probably the best defense in the country.
Yeah. So like, I can't take too much out of that week, 0 game, but last week, they lit it up against Eastern Washington. So I think they'll be able to kind of keep up and maybe put up like 30 against Oregon. So we'll see.
I definitely, as B said, I'm on a different side of this bet, but I definitely see this being a higher scoring game. And I didn't realize, I think that the total was that low. So I'm going to have to tail them here. I'm on the BYU Cougars though, Beast. I think they're just so much more physical than this Oregon team is. I think Oregon definitely is going to look better. This is why I'm not just straight up on the money line, because I think Oregon's going to look better than they did in week 1. They've figured some things out. They get to be at home in this spot, but I think they're just not physical enough in the trenches yet for BYU. I think BYU ends up just kind of running the ball and dictating the fourth quarter a little bit. Typically the team that runs the ball better, and if it's close in that fourth quarter, they're going to win the game. I think that's where BYU's at. We just have to cover 3.5 here with this number. Love it here with the BYU Cougars. Again, returning the most experience of any FBS team. So we've got tons of gelling. This away situation isn't going to be that big a deal to them because they've played in some crazy environments before, have looked amazing through 2 weeks of football. So we like what we see there. But yeah, I'm on the BYU Cougars plus 3.5, but I think Beast's overlook is pretty solid as well because I see this game being a little bit higher scoring. It's just those weird Pac-12 games. We know they don't love playing defense over there on the West Coast, so going to be a fun one.
Yeah, ideally, we might be able to hit both, get kind of a little 2-piece in that 3:30 slate. That would be nice.
Yep.
So if you want, I'll go to Penn State -3 at Auburn.
Yeah.
This was a game that it took me a minute to kind of come around on it. A couple games like that this week, but I love Nick Singleton, this running back they got at Penn State. There's a lot of talk going around that, this might be their next Saquon type running back. I don't know if I'm going to go that far yet, but he looked awesome last week. I mean, he was just running all over the place. We know Sean Clifford can kind of bring some offense. I didn't necessarily think Auburn was outstanding last week against San Jose State. They had a lot of issues, especially holding down San Jose State. They won that game 23-16, and it felt like they just kept letting, San Jose State kind of hang around, and then it was close. So Penn State's defense, we've seen, they didn't necessarily play like their best game against Purdue, I would say, but they were pretty solid last week, I felt like. And if Clifford can just give me like, a little bit, passing the ball, I think Nick Singleton's going to do plenty rushing the ball.
Yep.
Yes, this game's going to be at Auburn, but 3 points feels like nothing to me for a Penn State team that I just look at as like the superior team. If this was at Penn State, I feel like it would be like a 6-point spread.
At least, yeah. Yeah, I like this. This is the side I'm on as well. I mean, I didn't pick this game, but if I'm going to bet it, that's the side I'm on as well. I like Clifford in this spot. We just have less questions about Penn State, I feel like, at this point. And you're right. It is at Auburn, but it's a 2:30 game. And again, their crowd's going to be there. They're going to be excited, but it's just not the same as a night game. So I think this is a fine spot to be on the Nittany Lions. So I don't mind that at all. I'm going to go to my next play. and it's a little bit sicko mode. I'm not going to lie. I like the Toledo Rockets minus 32. They're at Ohio State. So far, Ohio State hasn't showed me anything that makes me just go, oh yeah, easily they're going to blow out a team that I think could win the MAC in Toledo by 32. The back door's wide open. So far, Toledo's looked really good through 2 games. Want to pull up their box scores real quick, but they've beaten UMass, which is a bad team, and they played another bad team, but they did their job. They covered against both those. Well, they didn't cover in the first game actually, but they shut out the other team in the first game. They covered the second game. Ohio State looked kind of shaky at moments against Arkansas State. They obviously had their struggles against Notre Dame, who we just saw lose to Marshall. So this is kind of one of those spots where I'm just taking the data points that I've been given. I think 32 is a lot of points. I think Ohio State probably wins this by 4 touchdowns. And that's 28. And I feel like that's not a big sweat. Toledo's a team that returned 7 starters on offense, 8 on defense. They're going to surprise you. They play a good defensive, slower style. They play a style where it's kind of hard to blow them out because they're not going to make a ton of mistakes on their own. I think not a lot of turnovers on the road. 32 is a lot of points, man. I do expect Ohio State to start looking like that number 2 team that we thought they were at some point. But in this one, I think they just, kind of cruise and don't do anything too special. Don't show anything before this Big Ten schedule gets started. And we cover this big number at 32 and we go home happy. Toledo Rockets plus 32.
Yeah, I think it's very common for all of us that are, big college football fans to just expect, a MAC school, playing Ohio State, that they're just going to get their asses, smacked.
Yep,
but
yep.
And that happens sometimes. But I agree. I don't think Toledo is that team. Like, this isn't a bottom of the MAC school. And I'm a big, fan of these backdoor covers. Anytime I can kind of get something like that. So you're right. Like, it could be a 38-point lead. 30 seconds left in the game and Toledo gets a touchdown. Suddenly Ohio State wins by 31. The fans at Ohio State don't care, but the bettors do care. So That's a perfect spot for that. That's a ton of points, dude.
That's a lot.
So we can go to we'll go to the NFL. This is, that's all I got as far as college. So
I've got 2 more college ones. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's perfect.
So if you want, I can hit an NFL and then you can go to college. So
yeah.
We'll go starting off, man. I'm really doing the whole, state of Michigan thing here, because I got Michigan State. We're going to go with the Detroit Lions money line, minus 125. Listen, I saw it was like minus 1.5 or minus 2 is the spread. And I'm like, you know what? I've seen this picture too many times. Like, the Lions kind of allow something to happen where it becomes like a 1-point win. This is the first time in like 24 games that we've been favored, which is just ridiculous to think.
That's insane.
Yeah, I think that was the number they said. Everybody's been talking about it, kind of clowning us for it. But listen, we said we're excited about this Detroit team. Dan Campbell's got the boys playing pretty good. I know last week they lost, but I felt like they showed a ton of fight at times, and that's a pretty solid Eagles team. I mean, most people now with, the Cowboys kind of going down, with Dak going down, everybody's annoyed. All right, well, they're going to win their division. Like, they're going to be a playoff team before. So everybody's talked up the Eagles as being like this outstanding team, but Detroit played them well at home, and I don't think Washington's that good. Sure, Wentz played all right last week. I'm not going to, discredit what he did last week, but I think Detroit's offense is going to be too much this week. Sure, it's probably going to be a high-scoring game again, like we said, but I was really excited about what I saw out of Detroit last week. I felt like Goff didn't have his best game, but he still was moving the ball. DeAndre Swift is an absolute dog. I heard he's a little bit banged up, but I think that he's expected to play. He put out a statement saying, I'm not missing Sunday. So I think the Lions roll in this one, get their first win of the season. This is one of those games where the Lions have no excuse to lose this game, because anybody, that I feel like has a knowledge of the NFC right now knows the Lions are probably the more talented team on offense. So they should win this game.
Yeah, I think the Lions score what they need to score here and get it done too. I'm excited about that, and I'll be tailing that one, no doubt. I got to go back to college for my pick. This is the UTSA Roadrunners plus 12.5. They're going to the Texas Longhorns. I just think there's going to be a Bama hangover here for Texas, and I think Texas is trying not to show too much more than they've already shown. They've obviously got the Big 12 schedule coming up. Play Texas Tech next week. So they're trying to show a little bit less. I think UTSA is a good program. This is a program that returned 8 starters on offense. Love their quarterback, senior Frank Harris. He's a dynamite kind of dual threat type of guy. It's perfect setup. They went 12-2 last year, so a really good program. They've had their results this year, and Texas looked great. But one thing I know about Texas is anytime they look good one week, they usually look the opposite the next. It's just kind of the way it's been the last several years. So I'm going with that. This is a bet. 43% of bettors are on this, so 57% on Texas. 86% of the money is on the Roadrunners. That tells me some of the sharps are on the Roadrunners here. Big time advantage here. UTSA just 1-1, but came up short against a good Houston team, beat a good Army team on the road, and now they get to go to Texas. Similar spot to your Florida game. This is a bunch of kids at UTSA that were like, we should have been recruited by Texas. We're as good as these guys. It's a chip on your shoulder game. Again, it's a 12.5 point spread at the time of me giving this pick out. So I'd like the Roadrunners here to cover this number. I think there's a Bama hangover in Austin.
No, I like that a lot. I think that there's got to be something going on in Austin this week. Ewers is out. Like vibes are a little bit down.
I think they're going to be on their third string quarterback more than likely as well.
Right. So it's a good spot. I think you have to pick your spots, especially in college right now with some of these overreactions. Everybody saw Texas play great last week. It's a good spot to kind of get in on that overreaction, I think. So we're going to go to this is one of the biggest spreads of the week in the NFL, and that's going to be Falcons plus 10.5 at the LA Rams. All right, we're fading the reigning Super Bowl champs, but I think it's hard to say that LA is the same team, with how they played last week. Sure, the Bills looked awesome, but Stafford threw 3 picks. A couple of those picks were not necessarily, off of a receiver's hands or something. Doesn't appear that his elbows, all that good. And meanwhile, on the other side, like the Falcons showed a ton of fight last week, beating the Saints, I guess they lost to the Saints just barely, I should say.
Yeah, it was a late comeback, and they had a chance to win it at the very end.
Yeah, so they did not win, but they lost by 1, had an opportunity to win it. Mariota actually played pretty good. Mm-hmm. And the big thing I saw out of Mariota last week was he rushed for 72 yards too. So he brings a different dynamic. I kind of didn't know if Mariota still had the same running ability that he once did, but I think that 10.5 points in the NFL is just an absurd amount of number. Especially against, LA is your reigning Super Bowl champs, and their defense is probably going to look a lot better this week. But Stafford's not playing his best ball right now. And when Stafford's not playing his best ball, I don't see them winning any game by 11 points. I mean, you could put them up against the Lions, the Jaguars, whoever you want to put. 10.5 points is way too much for me to not jump on this number. I think they keep it within, even if they lose by 10, we still get that backdoor cover. So similar to what we said in college, give me a big number. I'm going to jump on double digits in the NFL all day.
That is a huge number in the NFL, especially for a team that's 0-1. I mean, it's not like the Rams just came out and looked great against the Bills. Yeah. Now, I know the Bills are probably the best team this year. We'll see. They looked amazing in that Thursday night game, I think it was, to kick off the season.
Yeah.
But, dude, what did we see from the Rams where we're just like, oh, wow. Now, the one advantage they have is they have a couple more days rest. They got to watch that game that last week that the Falcons played, and then they get to watch the film. Obviously, they were resting up, so they'll have a little more rest, but man, Atlanta looked frisky. And I don't even think their new, Kyle Pitts, the big time tight end, I don't even think he had his biggest game yet. So maybe they saved a little something for the reigning Super Bowl champs. 10.5, tons of points in the NFL. I'm going to go to a play here, Beast. This is my last play, and I'm going back to college for this one. But this is our certified cold one classic already. We talked about it. USC at home against Fresno State, Jake Hayner. You got Caleb Williams. I got the over 73.5. I don't know this number. I would take it up above 75. I think there's going to be a ton of points scored in this one. It's Pac-12 after dark. It's going to be an awesome time. Taking the over, 2 great offenses, 2 pretty suspect defenses. And I think Lincoln Riley's not scared. If he sees a shootout coming, if it looks like, oh man, Fresno's going down and just scoring the ball, he's going to go tempo. He's going to try to score more than Fresno does, and that's a lot of plays, and that's great for the over. Give me this over 73.5. I think it's going to be a great time.
I think that's going to be the best game as far as points go this week to watch.
Entertaining. Yeah,
I mean,
entertaining.
We might see 100 points in that game if USC is really rolling like they have in past weeks. Because Fresno State, I mean, we know that they can score, but I don't think their defense is, made for a team like USC who's going to just be bringing all of the stops out. It's going to be pure fireworks. You got to love that. I think that's going to be one of the best games I'm like looking forward to, I should say. That's the wording there. But I got one more play in this one, a little tricky. Once again, we're kind of doing that overreaction type thing, and we're going to take San Francisco -8.5 at home versus Seattle. Everybody saw Seattle play so good on Monday Night Football. Yes, great win over Russ. I give you guys all like the kudos. I'll give you guys candy bars, whatever you guys want. Good for you. You won over, Russ. It was kind of a motivational game. Now you guys got to travel on the road and face this San Francisco defense. I think San Francisco was so underwhelming last week on the road against Chicago. A lot of people are questioning Trey Lance. I think this is a perfect spot for Trey Lance to get right. Seattle's not an outstanding defense. Trey Lance should have no issues. I think finally kind of showing why he was, the third overall pick and everything. And then the San Francisco defense is really the main component of this pick. I just think they smother Seattle. I think Geno Smith had one of his best games, as a backup, last week. And I don't think that happens this week. I think that 49ers put a ton of pressure on him. He's not going to get all that time in the pocket that he had. Right. I want to say he was like 17 of 22 or something like that, like last week. I mean, his completion percentage was ridiculous on Monday night. And I don't see that happening again. I think there's going to be a ton of overreaction here where people are like, well, Seattle, they can play with the big dogs, and everybody's just doubting San Francisco as if they weren't a 10, win total team entering the year. This defense will get it going. I think they actually roll this week, and we start to see, okay, Seattle really isn't that good, and San Francisco is actually, pretty solid. They just had a bad week one. So
Okay. So let's finish this show out as we always do with the pod parlay. This is we're going to take two of our favorite bets from the weekend. We're going to parlay them together, give them to you guys. We were so close last weekend to hitting the pod parlay, but look, all we got to do is hit one of these. If we hit this week's, we'll be positive on the year, which is all I care about. Should I go first or do you?
Yeah, go ahead, Ben.
All right. I'm going with a pick I haven't talked about yet. This is Minnesota -28 over Colorado. Colorado's a joke. I think Minnesota's a little underrated. The way they play football, they can really pile it on you quick because they're so physical just in the way that they play. And I think Colorado's just an absolute dumpster fire. They have looked really bad through two. They are 0-2. And if I'm not, they got beaten by Air Force 10-41, and then TCU beat them 13-38. They haven't even been close to covering these big numbers. Vegas is trying to catch up. Minnesota, meanwhile, is 2-0 against the spread. I think they hit this number. Minnesota -28 will be our first play on the pod parlay.
All right. I like that a lot. We're going to go to a play I already talked about, so you guys can kind of reference that in the video, and that's BYU, Oregon. We're going to take over 57.5 points. Like I said, this one just feels like it's going to be an electric environment. Pac-12 games seem to kind of run up the scoring, and I think that with that offense that BYU's bringing to town, they're going to be putting up a ton of points on Oregon's defense. Oregon should be able to be fine. Bo Nix, actually looked a lot better last week. I think that the offense is just rolling this one. And like I said, I see this as like a 38-31 type game where BYU covers for PG. We get a ton of points, go over 57.5 easily, and we get, a little double dip, maybe cash the pod parlay while we're at it, baby.
Well, see, this is fun because both our games are happening in the same time slot. So you can kind of just sweat this out. And if it's looking like, okay, I can hedge and maybe get a middle here, you'll have an opportunity to do so because both games will be going on at the same time with the live lines and whatnot. You could find some value there. Minnesota -28 and then over 57.5 BYU. Oregon comes out to 272 on the pod parlay. So very excited about that one. I think we hit it this week.
Let's go.
And it's going to be a really fun weekend. Keep an eye out on Potato Gobbler Twitter, Coda Cappers on Twitter. We're going to be I've got a really cool idea that maybe I want to kind of tease it here. The hashtag I think is going to be PG to NE. NE is Nebraska.
Okay.
And I'm going to be doing some updates as I go. I've got an idea. People like it when I do the 3-point stance. I think I'm going to break out the tripod and get my phone because I'm traveling by myself. So I'm going to have to use a tripod. I'm going to get in a 3-point stance in front of some landmarks and whatnot on the way up there. It's a 7.5 hour drive for me. I'm going to be leaving at maybe like 5 a.m. my time. So you guys will get to kind of live that road trip out with me. So that'll be a lot of fun. And
there you go.
And then we'll have the recap show on Monday. And who knows what kind of weekend we have, but it should be fun.
Yeah, maybe get a little gas station 3-point
Definitely
stance
some gas
on the way.
stations. Yeah, and I
like
haven't 4-point stance revealed yet, so I got to do that.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, you guys got to make sure, stay tuned, watch PG's, Twitter, watch all the Coda Cappers Twitter this weekend between Kyle and Corey, Thomas, Pace, all these guys that are going to be at this game. It's going to be awesome. Looking forward to seeing it, and I'm looking forward to seeing all like the kind of shit talking going on between the guys because we got a couple Oklahoma fans. We got Corey defending his Nebraska Cornhuskers, so it'll be a fun time, man.
We've got some stuff planned for Corey. We're gonna make sure he's not comfortable, and we're gonna get it done.
I love it.
It's gonna be a lot of fun. Good weekend coming. So appreciate you guys listening. If you don't mind subscribing, rate us 5 stars or thumbs up the video. That actually helps us a lot, and we appreciate it very much. We'll catch you on Tuesday morning. See you guys soon. Peace.
Peace.